So, buyer's representation agreement. First section here is all about the parties, client's name, so i.e., your name, address, phone number, and all the pertinent information to contact you. Broker will be myself or my broker's name, and the same thing, all that information that's needed to contact me. Section two here is all about the appointment. You are actually appointing me as a representative of you to act on your behalf as a fiduciary. And then section three with the definitions. Acquire means to purchase or lease. This can obviously be used as to either buy or lease a property. Closing, when you actually get keys or the lease is actually initiated and the keys are handed over to the tenant. And then market area means I can put in here DFW, Collin County, if we're only looking in Collin County or any other counties. But this is basically the market area that I'm looking to work with you in. And then the property itself means the address, the physical, tangible property that we're working on. The term, you always want a term in here. Just depends on how long your outlook is. If you are currently in a lease or moving into the area, probably want to go a little longer than what you would if you were already here and you're ready to go and know what it is that you're looking for. So the broker's obligations, this is exactly everything that your agent is supposed to do for you. Use the best efforts, assist the clients in negotiating, and comply with other provisions of the agreement. And then this is your homework assignment, what it is that you're supposed to do. So client will work exclusively through the broker. So you're not working out with another agent as well too and creating a conflict at some point later. Those are always uncomfortable. Broker exclusively represents the client for purposes of acquiring a property in the market area, which we talked about just a second ago. All such persons to broker and comply with other provisions of this agreement. Representations. Each person signing this agreement that the person has legal capacity, so you're not drunk, you're of age, no other thing that is kind of hindering you from making a good decision. Buying the respective party to this agreement. Client represents that the client is not now a party to another buyer tenant agreement. So again, like I mentioned before, you can't be working with another agent underneath an agreement and then sign an agreement with this one. It's definitely going to create a conflict and an uncomfortable situation. And if you got any other for section D here, if you got any other like relocating to the area for some of the big engineering companies or whatever companies that we have here in the DFW area, you want to put that down so we'll know who we need to communicate with as well too. And then intermediary, this is where me as a listing agent would have you as a buyer or a tenant wanting to come and purchase this. So basically, I'm booking in both sides of it. Here in Texas, we can't do that. So one person has to be appointed. And this basically spells out what actually occurs in those situations. And then if broker acts as an intermediary, this basically tells you what happens. Brokers associates may not disclose to the client that the seller or landlord accept price increases. So all of this whole section goes back to being a fiduciary. You can't disclose anything that you or the seller, if I'm in a fiduciary relationship, told me in private. And then competing clients. Client acknowledges that broker may represent other prospective buyers and tenants who may seek to acquire the property that may be of interest to the client. So, in other words, if we go and see 123 Jackson Street, and I have another client that wants to go see 123 Jackson Street, I can legally take that client over there to show them. I have to treat you guys both fairly, but I can take one client by just as well as I can take another client by. And then confidential information is basically spells out everything that we have to keep in confidence as licensed agents. This will basically enforce our fiduciary responsibilities to you. And then the broker's fees. Section 11, commission. The parties agree that the broker will receive commission calculated as follows. And it goes through here, whatever's negotiated and agreed upon. Most of the time, agents will seek to receive those funds and those monies from the seller side or the landlord side because they're trying to make their property more attractive and obviously get other agents and other people who want to go by and take a look at it. And then earned and payable. The client enters into a contract to buy or lease a property in the market. Client breaches this agreement. Broker's commission is payable. The closing of the transaction to acquire the property. Client breaches of contract to buy or lease the property in the market area. Client breaches this agreement. If the client acquires more than one property under this agreement, broker's commission for each property acquired are earned as each property is acquired and payable at the time of closing. So if you bought two properties, only one's closed, the agent doesn't get paid gets paid as one gets closed. And then when the second one closes, they'll get paid too. not before, not after. And additional compensation, if a seller, landlord, or the agents offer compensation in excess of the amount stated in paragraph 11A, including but not limited to marketing incentives or bonuses to cooperating brokers, broker may retain additional compensation in addition to specified commission. So, in other words, if there's a commission on the table that we're receiving from either the seller or the landlord or the tenant or the seller or the buyer, and like a builder or whoever is offering an additional incentive, we also receive that funds as well too. Client is not obligated to pay the additional compensation though, just what's on the table for the property itself. In addition to commission specified under paragraph 11A, broker is entitled to the following fees. Construction. Um, if the client uses broker's services to procure and negotiate a contract of improvement, so in other words, you're getting a home built, and we're obviously allowed to get paid for that. Services provided if the broker refers client or party to a transaction contemplated by this agreement to a service provider, example, mover cable company, then yes, we can receive some payment from the service provider as well too. Protection period. Protection period means that starting the day of this agreement ends and continues for X amount of days, obviously be negotiated, not later than 10 days after this agreement ends. Broker may send client written notice identifying the properties called to the client's attention during this agreement. So, in other words, if we go out and show you a bunch of houses and things of that nature, and then you decided to go off and in this agreement work with another agent, but you went back to that same 123 Jackson Street that we talked about earlier, then I'm still able to earn that commission. Escrow authorization. Client authorizes the broker may so instruct any escrow or closing agent authorized to close a transaction for the acquisition of property contemplated by the agreement to collect and disperse to broker all amounts payable to broker. So in other words, at the end of the escrow, you are authorized, or end of the transaction, you're authorizing the escrow agent to disperse the funds the way they should be dispersed to make sure all parties are paid. Mediation, the parties agree to negotiate in good faith in an effort to resolve any dispute that may arise related to this agreement. So, in other words, if there's any issues, obviously agree to go to mediation before you go take any other legal action. If either party fails to comply with this agreement or makes a false representation in the agreement, the non-complying party is in default. If client is in default, broker may terminate this agreement and client will be liable for the amount of compensation that the broker would have received under this agreement if the client was not in default. Broker may also terminate this agreement and exercise any other remedy at law. If broker is in default, client may exercise any remedy at law. So in other words, if something goes on, either party gets in default, you either take it to law or take it to court, do mediation, or Section 14, attorney's fees. If client or broker is a prevailing party in any legal proceeding brought as a result of a dispute under this agreement or any transaction related to this agreement, such party will be entitled to recover the non-prevailing party as cost of reasonable attorney fees. And then also Section 15 basically describes unlimited liabilities, and 16 would also have any addenda or anything like that that's part of this agreement as well. So if, for example, normally we send over the information about broker services as part of it, which that one will most likely always be checked, mold and remediation, consumer protection, information concerning property insurance, wire fraud, all the documents that may wind up being associated with this. And then special provisions, this is normally left for the lawyers. And as I stated in plenty of my other videos, I am not an attorney. I don't play one. I did stay at a Holiday Inn, but I am not an attorney. And then Section 18 are just your additional notices about brokers' fees, Fair Housing Act, and then, that brokers are not property inspectors, pest inspectors, appraisers, surveyors, engineers, professional engineers, environmental assessors, and any of those other things. Although sometimes we kind of help out in those scenarios, providing advice of seeking one of those professionals, but shouldn't provide any professional opinions. And then you sign at the bottom, broker's name, and i.e. whenever they say broker here, you can also tie in sales associate here in Texas. But most likely we'll check that box at the bottom down there, say broker's associate signature as an authorized agent of the broker. And then now the client sign on the right-hand side, 1, 2, and you can put an addendum or additional signature blocks on here if need be. That brings us to the conclusion of my interpretation of the TREC Buyer's Tenant Representation Agreement. Please like and share, and we'll see you next time.